Populism. It's a word you hear all the time, right? It's used to describe politicians on the left, on the right, pretty much everywhere in between. But what is it, really? Is it a genuine grassroots movement? A political strategy? Well, let's unpack it.
Okay, so you've definitely heard this one. This was the rallying cry for the whole Occupy movement, and honestly, it just perfectly captures that core idea we're going to dig into, this idea of a huge majority of people standing up against a tiny, powerful few.
Now, this sounds like it could be from a protest last week, doesn't it? But get this, it's actually from the 1890s. This was the message of the American People's Party, and it just goes to show you that this feeling, this idea of the many being exploited by the few, it is nothing new.
So, these slogans, they're incredibly powerful, but they all lead back to the same big question. What does populism actually mean? Let's get into how the experts define it.
All right, first up, let's get right to the heart of it all. The people versus the elite. This one single idea, it's the engine that drives pretty much every populist movement. It's a simple but really powerful story that pits two groups against each other.
So here's the basic recipe, right? On one side, you have the people, and they're always presented as being virtuous, hardworking, the good guys. And on the other side, you've got the elite, who are painted as this corrupt, totally out of touch group. The central message is always that these elites are doing the people wrong, but, and this is key, the people have the power to rise up and overthrow them.
And this brings up a fascinating point. I mean, is populism some kind of threat to democracy, or is it actually a core part of it? As the political scientist Kaz Muddy points out, the whole idea of a representative democracy is built on the people holding the elite accountable. So, where do you draw the line? It's tricky.
Okay, this is where things get really interesting and, frankly, pretty confusing for a lot of people. Where does populism even fit on the political spectrum? Here's the most important thing to get. Populism isn't a rigid rulebook of policies like socialism or conservatism. It's better to think of it as a style or a framework, that same story of the people versus the elite that can be picked up and used by figures on the left, the right, and kind of everywhere in between.
And, geography makes a huge difference here. In the U.S., populism has historically been linked to more left-leaning movements, things like the fight for farmers' rights. But if you hop over to Europe, the term is way more often used for movements on the right. It's the same people versus elite playbook, just aimed at completely different political goals.
And just as the politics can shift, so can the villain of the story. So who are the elite? Well, depending on who's talking, the elites could be the liberal elite, the Hollywood elite, a powerful trial lawyer lobby, or even just corporate greed, the 1%. The bad guy is flexible.
To really get what's happening today, we got to take a quick trip back in time. Because this is not a new invention. It's a theme that just keeps popping up all throughout political history.
I mean, this trend goes way, way back. We're talking about the populares in ancient Rome, who would just bypass the Senate to talk directly to the masses. Then you fast forward to the American farmers in the 1890s, or to these powerful, charismatic leaders in 20th century Latin America, and it all leads right up to the global wave of populism that we're seeing right now.
And that brings us to a really recent, really powerful example. Think about the 2016 U.S. election. The campaigns of both Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, they were ideologically miles apart, right? But both of them tapped into this deep, deep well of anti-establishment feeling, basically arguing that the whole system was rigged by the elites. So, all of this leads to the central dilemma, the really big question. Is populism a friend or a foe to democracy? Is it a necessary fix, or does it actually threaten the very institutions it claims to be fighting for?
Well, there are two big ways of looking at this. On one hand, you have people who see populism as a democratic wake-up call. It gives a voice to people who feel totally ignored. But, on the other hand, you have critics who warn that it can destabilize everything by just throwing expertise and compromise out the window in favor of raw emotion. And this gets to the most serious concern that historians and political scientists bring up. When does this whole us versus them rhetoric cross a really dangerous line?
This is a pretty chilling warning from history. In Germany, before World War II, the Nazis essentially hijacked the anger of existing populist movements. They took this legitimate frustration people had with big business and government, and as the source says, they parasitized it, twisting it with scapegoating and wild conspiracy theories to pull people toward their fascist ideology.
And that is the absolute key point here. The source material notes that when populism starts to rely on conspiratorial thinking, when it starts blaming a specific group of people for all of society's problems, it can create what they call a seedbed for fascism, basically fertile ground for these authoritarian movements to grow.
So let's bring it all together. Let's look at how this political style is shaping the world we're all living in right now.
You can see the pattern everywhere, right? From the Tea Party to Occupy, from the 2016 US election to the Brexit vote over in the UK, you have that same core story being told over and over and over again. It's the will of the ordinary people fighting against a distant, corrupt establishment.
And all of this leaves us with the ultimate question, doesn't it? When we see these populist movements on the rise, is it a sign that people are getting healthily re-engaged with politics to fix things? Or is it a symptom that something in our democratic system is already deeply broken? It's a question that pretty much defines our current political era.